My brother told my parents I failed out of the Navy 12 years. Later, his case landed on my desk. The first time my parents saw me in uniform after 12 years of silence, my brother was sitting at the defense table in a military courtroom. That was not how I imagined it. I had imagined it before. Not every day. Not in some obsessive, bitter way. But during long watches. During quiet nights after deployment. During the strange empty minutes before dawn when your mind goes places you never invited it to go. I had imagined walking into my parents' house in uniform. I had imagined my mother's hand flying to her mouth. I had imagined my father standing there, too proud to cry, but not strong enough to hide what he felt. I had imagined them realizing that Ryan had lied. That I had not failed. That I had not washed out. That I had not quit the Navy in shame like he told them. But I did not imagine it happening like this. I did not imagine fluorescent lights, polished floors, a government courtroom, and my brother's name on an investigative file thick enough to hold 12 years of consequences. I did not imagine my parents sitting in the third row, watching Ryan like he was still the son worth protecting. And I definitely did not imagine that page 61 of his file would prove they had known the truth for 7 years. My name is Ethan Mitchell. I am a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy. And for 12 years, my parents believed I failed out. At least that was what I thought. The hearing was scheduled for 0900. I arrived at 0840 because the Navy teaches you that early is on time is late, and late is a personal insult to everyone in the room. The courtroom was nothing like the ones on television. No dark wood. No dramatic gallery. No heavy oak doors. Just government walls, hard chairs, fluorescent light, and the kind of silence that only exists in official places where everybody knows the paperwork matters more than feelings. My shoes hit the floor with clean, steady sounds. I carried my folder to the oversight table, set it down, squared the edges, and took my seat. Then, for the first time, I let myself look behind me. My parents were in the third row. My father, Frank Mitchell, was wearing the same gray suit he wore to funerals and church events. His hair had gone almost completely white. He looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe memory had kept him larger because I needed him to be. My mother, Linda, sat beside him in a blue cardigan. She had both hands folded around a tissue, her eyes fixed on Ryan at the defense table. Ryan Mitchell. My older brother. The golden child. The son who stayed. The son who told them I had failed. The son who was now under formal review for falsified logistics documentation, missing equipment reports, and a chain of signatures that had finally caught up with him. Ryan saw me after my mother did. My mother looked up first. Her eyes moved across the front table, past the JAG officer, past the investigator, and landed on me. For 1 second, she did not understand. Then her hand flew to her mouth. My father followed her gaze. He grabbed the bench in front of him so hard his knuckles went pale. Ryan turned around half a second later. The color drained from his face. For one long, strange moment, nobody moved. 12 years of silence sat in that room with us. I looked away first. Not because I was weak. Because I had a job to do. And if there was one thing the Navy had taught me, it was that feelings could wait. The record could not. I opened my folder. Captain Raymond Foster sat at the head of the panel. 31 years of service. Silver hair. The kind of man who could make an entire room straighten its spine without raising his voice. Commander Alicia Brandt from JAG reviewed the procedural documents. Special Agent Donna Carver from NCIS sat at the evidence table, calm and precise, with the eyes of someone who had been lied to professionally for years and no longer found it interesting. Ryan sat beside his assigned defense counsel, Lieutenant Weaver, who looked young, serious, and deeply aware that his client's paperwork was terrible. My role was not to prosecute Ryan. I was not his judge. I was on the oversight panel because of my current assignment and experience reviewing logistics documentation. My job was to verify the evidence chain, confirm procedural consistency, and flag irregularities. I had done that kind of work hundreds of times. But never with my brother's name at the top of the file. And never with my parents watching from the third row. I should tell you about Hopewell, Virginia. Because Hopewell is where this story started long before the Navy ever touched it. It was a small town in the way towns can be small even when the map says they are bigger. Everybody knew somebody who knew your mother. Everybody had an opinion about your family. Everybody remembered which kid was the good one. Ryan was the good one. Ryan Mitchell was 4 years older than me. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Easy smile. Our father's jaw and our mother's eyes. He was the kind of guy teachers described as full of potential, even when he had not done the assignment. People liked Ryan before he earned it. That was his gift. He could walk into a room, smile, shake a hand, ask one question, and people would start making excuses for him before he needed them. I was the other Mitchell kid. Smart, serious, too quiet. My 6th grade teacher once wrote, "Ethan could stand to relax more." My mother kept that note in a box like it was a medical diagnosis. I did not relax more. I learned early that in our family, Ryan got the room. I got the responsibilities. If Ryan forgot something, I was asked to help. If Ryan messed up, I was asked to understand. If Ryan hurt someone, my mother said he was going through a difficult time. When I was 15 and Ryan was 19, he borrowed my savings from a summer job, swore he would pay me back, then spend it on a weekend trip with friends. My mother told me not to embarrass him by bringing it up at dinner. He feels bad enough, she said. He did not feel bad. He felt protected. There is a difference. My father was a proud man. Not cruel, exactly, just rigid. He believed in work, discipline, loyalty, and keeping family problems inside the family. Unfortunately, he also believed Ryan's version of events whenever Ryan delivered them with enough sadness in his voice. My mother loved both of us. I believe that now. But she loved Ryan with panic. She loved me with expectation. Ryan needed saving. I needed to be strong. That was how everything broke. I enlisted at 19, not because I had no options. I had a partial scholarship to Virginia Tech. I had decent grades. I could have stayed. Worked. Taken classes. Built a normal life close enough for Sunday dinners and long enough for my family to keep using me as the stable one. But I wanted something different. I wanted structure. I wanted a system where effort mattered. I wanted a life where nobody could call laziness a rough patch and responsibility a personality defect. I told my parents at the kitchen table on a Sunday afternoon in March. My mother was making pot roast. The windows were open. The whole house smelled like onions, beef, and the kind of home you do not realize you will lose until you are standing outside it. My father was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded once and said, "You work hard. You'll do fine." That was high praise from Frank Mitchell. My mother cried. But not in a bad way. She hugged me and told me to write. Ryan was not there. Ryan was rarely there when life required him to be present without being praised. At the time, he was going through what my mother called a rough patch. That meant he was drinking too much, working too little, and somehow still being spoken about like a wounded hero. 3 weeks later, I was at Great Lakes for boot camp. I wrote home every week. My mother wrote back faithfully, long letters on yellow legal paper. She told me about the neighbors, the church bake sale, my father's back pain, the weather, and whether the dog had forgiven me for leaving. My father sent cards with one sentence inside. Working hard. Good. That was my father's entire emotional vocabulary. I kept every card. After boot camp, I was stationed at Naval Station Norfolk. Hard months. Good months. The kind of months that build something inside you because they do not ask whether you feel ready. For the first time in my life, discipline did not feel like punishment. It felt like language. I knew what was expected. I knew how to meet it. I knew when I failed, I would own it. And I knew when I succeeded, nobody could hand the credit to Ryan at dinner. 8 months in, I came home for Christmas. I had saved money for gifts. I had my uniform pressed. I was nervous in a way I did not want to admit. I wanted my father to see me. Really see me. I wanted my mother to cry again. But the good kind. I wanted Ryan to make some joke and then maybe, just maybe, tell me I looked good. I pulled into the driveway. The porch light was on. My mother's wreath hung on the front door. For a second, everything looked normal. Then my father opened the door. He did not smile. He looked at me like I had disappointed him before I had even spoken. "We raised you better than to lie," he said. I froze on the porch. What? My mother appeared behind him, her face pale and careful. Not angry. Worse. Gentle, like she was looking at someone fragile. "Ethan," she said softly. "Honey, we know." I looked between them. "Know what?" My father's jaw tightened. "Tom told us everything." Back then, Ryan went by Tom sometimes with co-workers and strangers. Thomas Ryan Mitchell, depending on which version of himself he wanted to sell. To me, he was Ryan. To everyone else, he could become whatever worked. I glanced past them. Ryan was standing in the hallway. He looked sad. Practiced. Almost tender. That was when I knew something was wrong. "What did he tell you?" I asked. My father said, "That you washed out." The words did not make sense. I actually looked down at my uniform, as if the fabric itself might answer. I didn't. My mother said, "It's okay if the Navy wasn't a good fit. I'm still in the Navy." My father's face hardened. "Don't make this worse. I am standing here in uniform." Ryan stepped forward slowly. "Ethan, you don't have to keep pretending." I stared at him. "What did you do?" My mother gasped. "Do not blame your brother." That was the family reflex. Ryan could bury me alive, but I was rude for pointing at the shovel. My father said, "Ryan told us you requested discharge and were too embarrassed to admit it. He said you might show up wearing the uniform because you couldn't face the truth yet." I looked at Ryan. He shook his head slowly. Like he pitied me. Like I was breaking his heart. I said, "Call the base." My father said, "Enough. Call them. You think I'm going to let you stand on this porch and drag this family through more embarrassment? Dad, I'm telling you the truth." He looked at me with a kind of grief I had never seen before. That hurt more than anger. Then he said, "Come back when you're ready to be honest." And he closed the door. Just like that. The door of the house I grew up in closed in my face. I stood on that porch for 4 minutes. I know because I counted. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 240. Then I walked back to my car. I drove to a motel off Route 1. Cheap place. Broken air conditioner. Floral comforter. Thin walls. The kind of room where people go when life has gone wrong but not loudly enough for anyone to help. I sat on the edge of the bed in my uniform and stared at the wall until something inside me went quiet. Not numb, quiet. There is a difference. Numb means you cannot feel. Quiet means you feel everything, but you decide it does not get to command you. That night, I had a choice. I could let Ryan's lie hollow me out. Or I could go back to work. I went back to work. The next 12 years did not pass like a victory montage. I need to be honest about that. There were no dramatic speeches, no instant promotions, no perfect revenge waiting around the corner. There were deployments. There were long shifts. There were nights in the Gulf and the Pacific when I lay in my rack listening to the hum of the ship and wondered if my mother had thrown away the Christmas card I sent that year. Because I kept sending them. Every December. At first, with a return address. Then one came back stamped return to sender. I held that card for a long time. Then I put it in a box. The next year, I sent another card with no return address. Love you. Thinking of you. Hope you're well. No accusations. No speeches. Just proof that I still existed. No response. Not one. Not for 12 years. I made petty officer second class in my 3rd year. My commanding officer at the time, Commander Gerald Park, pulled me aside and said, "Mitchell, you are physically incapable of doing anything halfway. That will either make you exceptional or destroy you. Figure out which." I thought about that for years. By year 6, I made chief. By year 8, I applied for officer candidate school. I was older than most applicants. People mentioned that. I treated it like weather. Useful to know. Not worth arguing with. I graduated from OCS in Newport, Rhode Island. On a cold rainy Tuesday, nobody from my family came, but my daughter was there. Emily. I should tell you about Emily because she is the part of my life that made the story bigger than survival. Her mother, Sarah, and I met during my 2nd deployment. She was a civilian contractor, smart, funny, and kind in a way that did not ask to be rewarded. We tried to build a life together. It did not work. Not because either of us was evil. Because two good people can still be wrong for each other. We separated without hatred. That remains one of the most mature things I have ever done. Emily was 18 months old when I graduated from OCS. She wore a yellow raincoat in the audience and looked like a very small maritime official. When I walked off the stage, she patted my cheek and said, "Good job, Daddy," like she was approving a maintenance report. That nearly broke me. Years later, when I made lieutenant commander, Emily was 7. She sat in the front row of the ceremony in a wrinkled blue dress, legs swinging because her feet did not reach the floor. Afterward, she asked if the new rank meant I was allowed to boss more people around. I told her, professionally, yes. She nodded, satisfied. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat outside and thought about the 2 empty chairs. My parents had missed everything. Because of one lie. Because of Ryan. Or so I thought. The file landed on my desk on a Monday morning in February. Standard routing. Flagged for officer review because of multiple command involvement and alleged documentation failures. The cover sheet read, Investigation File, Mitchell, Thomas Ryan, Petty Officer First Class. Falsified logistics documentation. Multiple counts. I read the name twice. Then the date of birth. Then the hometown. Hopewell, Virginia. My brother had joined the Navy 5 years after I did. After telling my parents I had failed out. After taking my place at the Christmas table. After letting them believe I had lied. He had joined my branch, worn the uniform, built a career, and somehow never told them the truth in a way that brought them back to me. I sat very still. Then I opened the file. 73 pages. I read every one before 0800. Ryan had been stationed in Bremerton, Washington, working as a logistics coordinator. His job was to verify and document receipt and inspection of equipment. Replacement parts. Electronics. Safety gear. Equipment that needed to exist where paperwork said it existed. Except the paperwork did not match reality. Over an 18-month period, Ryan had signed off on 34 inspection reports for equipment that was missing, unverified, delayed, or redirected. The total value of improperly documented equipment was around $340,000. Some of it was eventually found under different inventory codes. Some of it was not. The investigation had been built carefully by NCIS. Special Agent Donna Carver's reports were precise enough to hold weight under any light. At 0830, Captain James Okafor called me into his office. He had 27 years of service, former JAG background, and a way of choosing words like each one came with consequences. "You've seen the Mitchell file?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "You're related?" "Yes, sir. He's my brother." He studied my face. "We can assign someone else to the oversight panel." Part of me wanted to say yes. The part that still remembered the porch. The motel. The returned Christmas card. The part that had imagined seeing my parents again under better lighting. But I had not built 12 years of service by stepping away from hard things just because they had my blood type. "I can handle it, sir." He held my eyes for another second. "Your parents will likely be present. Next of kin were notified." "Understood, sir." I returned to my office, closed the door, placed both hands flat on the desk. Then I reopened the file and started taking notes. That was when I found page 61. I almost missed it. It was buried in the administrative section. Personnel history. Duty assignments. Commendations. Correspondence. The kind of bureaucratic appendix most people skim because the action is usually elsewhere. But I have learned that the truth often hides in paperwork people consider boring. 7 years earlier, Ryan had submitted a formal request to update family notification records. Routine. In case of disciplinary action, injury, or death, next of kin should include Frank and Linda Mitchell of Hopewell, Virginia. Normal. But attached to the request was a personal letter. Written by Ryan. Addressed to my parents. "I will never forget the lines that mattered. I want you to know Ethan is still serving. He never quit. I told you he did because I was jealous and angry, and I didn't know how to take it back. He didn't deserve what I did. He deserved better from me. He deserved better from you." The letter was dated 7 years ago. Delivery confirmation was attached. Received. Signed for. By my father. I sat back in my chair. For a while, I could not move. 7 years. They had known the truth for 7 years. They had known Ryan lied. They had known I had not failed. They had known I kept serving. And they still never called. Not once. Not when I became an officer. Not when I made lieutenant commander. Not when I sent Christmas cards into silence. Not when their granddaughter was born. They had known. That realization did not feel like anger at first. It felt like gravity changed. The brother's lie had cost me 5 years. My parents' silence had cost me 7 more. I did not sleep the night before the hearing. I tried. I made tea. I reviewed the file. I checked the evidence chain. I wrote notes on a yellow legal pad, the same kind my mother used for letters before the silence swallowed her. By 0200, I was standing at my kitchen window, looking down at the parking lot outside my apartment in Virginia Beach. Emily was asleep in the next room. Sarah had dropped her off late after a weekend visit. There was a cat crossing the asphalt with the kind of confidence only cats and admirals possess. I thought about my parents receiving that letter. I tried to be fair. That is harder than people think. Bitterness is easy. Fairness requires discipline. Maybe they were ashamed. Maybe they did not know how to call after so many years. Maybe my father read the letter and could not face the man he had become on that porch. Maybe my mother took it out some nights, touched the page, and cried. Maybe. But shame does not excuse silence. Not 7 years of it. At 0615, Emily wandered into the kitchen rubbing her eyes. She saw my dress whites hanging ready. "You look important today," she said. "Just doing my job, kiddo." She studied me carefully. "Will you be home for dinner?" "Yes." "You promise?" "I promise." She nodded. "Okay. We're having spaghetti." I smiled. "Then I'll definitely be home." She went to find cereal. I buttoned my uniform, looked in the mirror, and saw 12 years my parents had chosen not to see. Then I went to court. Special Agent Carver presented the evidence with the clean precision of someone who had built the case brick by brick. 34 falsified inspection reports. 17 discrepancy logs. 4 witness statements. Authorization codes tied to Ryan. Equipment documented before it arrived. Equipment moved without proper verification. Equipment that existed only because Ryan's signature said it did. The Navy does not need to shout. It has documents. Every few minutes, I felt my parents' eyes on me. Not on the file. On me. On the uniform. On the rank. On the man they had been told could not handle Navy life, sitting at the oversight table with Lieutenant Commander Oak Leaves on his shoulder boards. During recess, I stepped into the hallway for water. My mother followed me. "Ethan." I turned. She looked at my face. Then my collar. Then my face again. "You're still in." "Yes, ma'am." My father came up behind her. His eyes stayed on my rank. "What rank is that?" "Lieutenant Commander." "Oh, 4. He swallowed. "How long?" "I've held it for 3 years." Neither of them spoke. I let the silence do its job. Then Ryan came out of the courtroom. For the first time in 12 years, the four of us stood in the same physical space. My father turned to him. His voice was low. Why? Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. Same gesture from childhood. Same tell. Because he was doing better than me. Ryan said quietly. And I couldn't stand it. The hallway held that sentence. My mother made a small sound. I looked at Ryan. Which part couldn't you stand? The lie that cost me my family for 12 years, or the paperwork that is about to cost you your career? Ryan looked at me then. Really looked. For once, there was no performance left. Both, he said. I adjusted the front of my uniform jacket. Neither did I. Then I walked back into the courtroom. The hearing continued. Ryan's defense tried to question procedure, but procedure was not the weak point. Ryan was. The evidence held. The panel recommended formal charges. JAG confirmed the record was sufficient. Ryan eventually accepted a plea agreement. Reduction in rank, forfeiture of pay, formal reprimand, and a less than honorable discharge. He did not go to prison. Some people want prison in stories like this. I understand. But real consequences are often quieter and colder. Ryan lost his career. His rank. His pension path. His image. The Navy took back the uniform he had used to look bigger than he was. After the hearing, I met my parents in the parking lot. The November wind came off the water hard enough to make my mother hold her cardigan closed. I had printed page 61. The letter, I handed it to my father. He looked at it like it might explode. What is this? Read it. He did. Standing there in his gray suit, under the flat afternoon light, my father read the letter proving Ryan had confessed 7 years earlier. His lips moved silently over certain words. When he finished, he folded the paper once. Then again. 7 years. He said. Yes. My mother covered her mouth. Her eyes filled. You knew? I asked. My father did not answer. My mother whispered, we didn't know how to come back. That sentence almost broke something in me. Not because it was enough. Because it was so small compared to the damage. You knew where I was. I said. My father looked up. I was ashamed. You should have been. He nodded once. I know. No, I said. You don't. Not yet. My mother cried harder. I looked at both of them. Ryan lied, and you believed him. That cost me 5 years. But then he told you the truth, and you stayed silent. That cost me 7 more. My father closed his eyes. I don't know what to say to you. I know. There isn't anything I can say. I know. The wind moved between us. For 12 years, I had imagined this moment as anger. It was not anger. It was emptier than that. Cleaner. I thought about Emily. About spaghetti. About her asking if I would be home for dinner. Then I said something I had not planned. Do you want to meet your granddaughter? My mother looked like she stopped breathing. She's 7, I said. Her name is Emily. She gets out of school at 3. My father stared at me. My mother said. Yes. Immediately. Yes. Please. They came to my apartment in January. I needed time, not because I wanted to punish them, because 12 years does not heal on a parking lot schedule. My mother brought pot roast in a Dutch oven wrapped in towels, which was exactly how she had transported pot roast my entire childhood. The smell hit me when she walked in. That almost did more to me than the courtroom. Emily interrogated them for 45 minutes. What was their house like? Did they own a dog? Had they ever been on a Navy ship? What was Grandpa's favorite dinosaur? My father said Brontosaurus. Emily corrected him and said scientists had opinions about that now. He accepted the correction with more humility than I had ever seen from him. My mother sat at my kitchen table and noticed the yellow legal pad beside my laptop. I used to write to you on those, she said. I know. I kept your cards, she whispered. I looked at her. All of them? She nodded. After we knew. Before we knew. All of them. I said nothing. She looked down at her hands. I didn't answer because I didn't know how to begin. That is not an excuse. I know. It's not even close. I know. Her voice broke. But it was never nothing. I want you to know that. It was never nothing. I looked into the living room. Emily was explaining naval ranks to my father with a hand-drawn diagram. He was listening like the diagram was classified. I did not forgive them that day. I still have not fully forgiven them. But I let them sit at my table. That was what I had available. Not forgiveness, a chair. Sometimes that is where rebuilding starts. Ryan never reached out. I did not expect him to. He moved back to Hopewell after discharge. Uncle Mark told me he was living with my parents for a while, which felt like the story folding in on itself. I found something else in the file later, a second letter. Written in 2019. Same administrative style. Same delivery confirmation. In it, Ryan had written my current unit, my rank at the time, and enough information for my parents to find me if they had wanted to. He had not given them a map. But he had left breadcrumbs. I do not know what to do with that. Maybe nothing. The Navy teaches you that you do not control conditions. You control response. Ryan could not stand that I was doing better than him, so he made me smaller in the only room that mattered to him. My parents let the lie stand because admitting the truth meant facing what they had done. 12 years later, Ryan's case landed on my desk, and I walked into that courtroom in dress whites. Not to get revenge. Not to prove I had won. But because I had a duty. Because I was still there. Because the life Ryan said I failed to build had kept going without his permission. A few weeks after everything settled, Emily asked me what the hearing was about. I told her, it was about someone who told a lie for so long he forgot other people had to live inside it. She thought about that seriously. Did you fix it? She asked. I looked at her, at the cereal bowl in her hands. At the child, my parents had almost never known because shame was easier than a phone call. Some of it, I said. She nodded. That counts. She was right. It does. So, Ada for refusing to immediately forgive my parents after my brother admitted he lied about my Navy career, and they stayed silent for 7 more years? Maybe some people will say yes. Maybe they will say 12 years is long enough. Maybe they will say parents make mistakes. Maybe they will say my brother was the real villain. But my brother told one lie because he was jealous. My parents lived inside that lie because the truth made them ashamed. And shame does not get to become my responsibility just because it finally got heavy. I am not the 19-year-old standing on the porch anymore. I am not waiting for my father to open the door. I built a life. A career. A daughter who asks good questions. And when my family finally saw me again, I was not begging them to believe I had made it. I was sitting at the front of the courtroom, doing my job. In the uniform they were told I had failed to earn. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.